James Mennie, reporter, columnist, and editor at the Montreal Gazette, joins us every day at this time. Hello, James.
Hello, Sue.
I'm looking at these poll results. There's a lot of dark blue.
Yeah, but you know what? I've been working on this theory ever since the bottom dropped out with the CAC. And one of the things that I find boosted the Parti Québécois' reputation was, you would compare Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon to who was in charge at that point in time, i.e. an increasingly erratic François Legault, who was basically, there's nothing wrong, even though his party kept just tumbling in the polls. And remember, back then we're talking about a PQ that I think had a caucus of like 5 members, and yet they were the absolute number one choice of Quebecers. And I find in this latest Palace Quebec 125 poll that they're at 31%. The Liberals are at 27%, and this is overall. That's within the margin of error. That's no big deal. Liberals popped up by 2, but once again, as many of our listeners know, the real tale is told in the Francophone voter support, and this is interesting, because the PQ enjoys 34%, was well ahead of its closest rivals, the CAC, and the Liberals at 19%. However, let's ask ourselves, because this survey was conducted like the 2nd and 3rd of this month, have you heard word one from Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon? Have you heard the PQ say anything at all? No. It's almost as if, you know what I mean? As our dear friend Jean Lapierre used to say, the jello has set for the PQ. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Right now, the support is there. It could be disrupted. What I find very significant is if you look at the Francophone support for the CAC at 90%, that's a drop of 6 points, which, look at this. The Liberals are up 4, and the Quebec Conservative Party are up 2, which basically suggests to me that, the so-called federalists who found themselves in the CAC have decided to park their votes down the road. But then we get to, once again, the whole thing of leadership, of perception. And for the time being, Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon is far and away the most popular choice for Premier of Quebec at 26%, which is not as high as he's been placed at in some other polls. Christine Fréchette, despite all the bad news that's been surrounding her government and the fact that this really is a climb down for her, is still at 19%. I love this. Charles Milliard, head of the Quebec Liberal Party, is at 17%. That's 1 point behind I don't know. So, I mean, I've said this ad nauseum, Sue. This campaign's got to get its head together. It's got to figure out what it wants to be when it grows up. It has been very, very spotty. Milliard has been out and about recently, and some people have perceived that as being nothing more than an attempt on the part of the party to provide some proof of life that they have a leader.
Well,
that he's doing something.
He's coming on our show tomorrow.
Isn't that amazing? Yeah. What an amazing! It's just coincidences left, right, and center.
Well, he remembered the English people.
Well,
Thank
good for
you.
him. But the thing is, right now, I think we're in a situation where these numbers could change and change radically. Mm-hmm. Okay. If they stop pretending that this is the summer lull. They stop pretending that, as I say, there is no downtime anymore. That's from a previous generation. Go in there, go after the PQ, go after even after the CAC, for the Liberals. Clearly, your number one target politically is not the CAC. They're stick a fork in them. Mm-hmm. But it's the PQ, and it has got to be consistent. Absolutely consistent, and we haven't seen that thus far. Maybe it'll change. Maybe we'll see with this interview tomorrow. But I also have to tell you, you and I think our listeners know, he's preaching to the choir right now. I mean, the whole thing here is like they don't want to be the Liberal Party of the West Island of Montreal. They want to get out there, and this survey suggests that it's a dead heat in the greater Montreal area. It's a dead heat between the Liberals and the PQ. Because why? Because of the famous 450, which used to be a light blue, but now could be returning to a dark blue. In other words, Laval, North Shore, Montérégie, South Shore. But what gets me here is I'm not that old, but I've covered enough elections. I remember when the 450 was owned and operated by the Quebec Liberal Party. And now look at it. It may as well be on the desert. So I think there's going to have to be a change in the strategy for the Liberals. Yes, you're regionalist and you're regionalist, federalist, and autonomous. But you know what? Also be a bit of a banlieusard, because that's where you get a lot of votes, a lot of seats in the 450 appeal. That is a growing part of Quebec. And I think just to contrast and compare, if Paul Saint-Pierre is obliged to keep falling back on the race to the bottom that he was engaged in with Francois Legault's CAQ, i.e. identity politics, everything's in danger, it's always someone else's fault, we're all alone, I'm the only one who can save you. I don't think that's going to work at all. But I also think that we're going to have to see a more pugnacious and, how can I put it, more committed Quebec Liberal Party. And I don't know, I have a thinking suspicion that the latest addition to their slate of candidates, i.e. Michel Leblanc, former head of the Montreal Board of Trade, I think we'll be hearing more from him. And I think as well, between now and Election Day, you'll probably we'll probably here at CJAD end up doing more interviews with him than we will with Charles Mignard, because this is a guy who knows how the province works. He knows that Montreal is the Montreal makes things go. Like it or hate it, it is the GDP, it's the economy. Without Montreal, Quebec is in deep, deep trouble. So there's going to have to be some consideration there. But once again, I think this poll suggests, and it's not a trend yet, we'll have to wait for another poll, but I think we're seeing a situation here where the how can I put it, the chessboard can be changed, but it's really going to depend on personalities, and i.e. Monsieur Milliard is going to have to at least go beyond, show up, and not just show up, but have something to say. Have something that you and not just you and I are going to be talking about, but that they'll be talking about over at 98.5, Francophone stations and Francophone media, and become their front and center, as opposed to sort of like being perceived as he is at the moment, rightly or wrongly, as a kind of a sonar echo of the federal Liberal Party. And I really think if any Liberals are listening right now, and I hope this poll sort of gives weight to what I'm about to suggest, stop trying to be the CAQ light, okay? The CAQ's on its way out. Forget about it. Forget this whole kind of, it's the regions and this. No. There was a time when the Quebec Liberal Party ran the table from Montreal out to the Gaspé, and it wasn't because they were kicking kicking Anglophones or Muslims or people who didn't look like your so-called typical Quebecer. They had something to offer everybody. And I think it's time that the Liberal Party return to that rather than trying for the umpteenth time to reinvent itself.
Well, and I mean, to your point, like he has to say something. You talk about big ideas. He has to have kind of any of ideas. Right now we haven't heard really very much. I mean,
the idea is, listen, I'll defend you against Trump, which, okay, that works for Mark Carney.
Yeah.
But the fact is, and we were supposed to talk about that today, but this poll came up. But what you just got through talking about the idea of making mental health an election issue. You know what? You know how many of our listeners are nodding as I say that right now? And if I would say it in French, it'd be the same thing. People understand. So many people in this province have been touched by the fallout of mental illness. They know exactly what's going on. They know exactly what's lacking. The fact that you would have a minister put in charge of the province's mental health, I think would be an excellent idea. Let's see if it happens. But once again, you should be hearing from Sean Milliard on social media about what was said today. Will we? I don't know. I'll give him until 6 o'clock.
All right. Well, I'll ask him tomorrow, James.
Absolutely.
All right. Listen, thanks so much for weighing in, and we'll talk to you tomorrow, and we'll see. We'll have talked to him by then.
We'll be the judge of that.
Okay. We'll be waiting for huge announcements coming out of that interview.
Absolutely.
Bye,
Until then, à demain.
Canadian women are looking for more out of themselves, their businesses, their elected leaders, and the world around them.
And that's why we're thrilled to introduce the Honest Talk podcast.
I'm Jennifer Stewart.
And I'm Catherine Clark. And in this podcast, we interview Canada's most inspiring women.
Entrepreneurs, artists, athletes, politicians, and newsmakers, all at different stages of their journey.
So if you're looking to connect, then we hope you'll join us.
Listen to the Honest Talk podcast on iHeartRadio or wherever you listen to your podcasts.